From the Appalachian Peaks to the golden shores of California, it was an epic trek across a continent. A journey of ambition and desperation, of unparalleled courage and unspeakable cruelty. This was the American frontier, not just a line on a map, but a crucible where a new nation was forged in fire. For over 2 centuries, it was a land of myth and men, where fortunes were made and lost in a day, and the very concept of civilization was constantly redefined. But beneath the romantic tales of cowboys and pioneers lies a darker, more complex story, one of brutal conflict, broken promises, and the price of progress. Don't miss a single chapter of this hidden history. Subscribe now to uncover more untold stories from the annals of time. The year is 1803. A young nation, barely a quarter century old, stares west at a vast, uncharted wilderness. This is the American frontier, a land of boundless promise and unimaginable peril. To the east, established settlements teem with a restless energy, fueled by the promise of cheap land and a new start. To the west, beyond the Mississippi, a continent stretches out, a sprawling mosaic of towering forests, endless plains, and jagged mountain ranges. This is the domain of powerful indigenous nations, the Sioux, the Cheyenne, the Cherokee, each with a deep and ancient connection to the land. Against this backdrop, a new American identity is being forged. It's a culture of rugged individualism, driven by the desire for land and the belief in manifest destiny. The idea that it was God's will for the United States to expand from coast to coast. This isn't just a political ideology. It's a fever that grips the nation, drawing farmers, trappers, and adventurers westward. The tools of this conquest are simple but deadly. The long rifle, the iron axe, and an unshakable belief in the rightness of their cause. But the land is not empty, and the trail ahead is not a straight line. Every mile forward is a step into a conflict that will define a century and echo through generations. The first great wave of pioneers surged across the Appalachians, carving out homesteads from dense wilderness. But this was merely the prelude. The true test came with the Louisiana Purchase in 1803. Suddenly, the frontier was not just a border, but an entire continent. Lewis and Clark's legendary expedition unlocked the secrets of the West, mapping rivers and mountains, charting a course to the Pacific. Their reports painted a picture of a land overflowing with opportunity, a new Eden waiting to be tamed. This golden age of exploration soon gave way to a frenzy of expansion. Mountain men, a new breed of frontiersmen, sought their fortunes in the unforgiving Rockies, trapping beaver and trading with native tribes. They were the first to truly understand the vastness and the dangers of the land, navigating treacherous passes and surviving brutal winters. But their pursuit of profit set the stage for a new kind of conflict. The relentless march of settlers, driven by land speculation and the promise of a new life, brought them into direct, often violent, confrontation with the indigenous nations who had lived there for millennia. The U.S. government, fueled by expansionist ambitions, enacted policies that forced native tribes from their ancestral lands. The Indian Removal Act of 1830 led to the harrowing Trail of Tears, a forced march that resulted in the deaths of thousands of Cherokee. The tragedy was a grim sign of things to come. The frontier was no longer a place of negotiation. It was a battleground. As the railroads began to snake their way across the plains, they were not just laying tracks, but building a new world, one that would leave no room for those who stood in its way. The stage was set for a final, cataclysmic showdown. The clash was inevitable, but its scale was unprecedented. The discovery of gold in California in 1848 triggered a stampede, a tidal wave of humanity that swept across the continent. Thousands abandoned everything in pursuit of instant wealth, following the Oregon and California trails through deserts, over mountains, and into the heart of a conflict. This was the moment of no return. The sheer number of settlers overwhelmed the land and its original inhabitants, turning small skirmishes into full-blown wars. The Lakota Sioux, led by legendary chiefs like Sitting Bull and Crazy Horse, stood as the last great obstacle. They were master horsemen and fierce warriors who had long dominated the Great Plains. The U.S. military, hardened by the Civil War, was tasked with their removal. Tensions boiled over in a series of brutal battles, but no conflict was more iconic than the Battle of the Little Bighorn in 1876. Led by General George Custer, a force of cavalrymen rode into the valley, confident and reckless. They had underestimated their enemy. What was meant to be a swift victory turned into a desperate last stand. Surrounded and outnumbered, Custer and his men were annihilated. The defeat sent shockwaves across the nation, but it was a fleeting victory for the Sioux. The U.S. government, fueled by vengeance, responded with overwhelming force, driving the tribes into submission. The massacre at Wounded Knee in 1890, where hundreds of unarmed Sioux were slaughtered, marked the tragic end of the Indian Wars and the final, brutal chapter of resistance. The frontier was officially closed. The closing of the frontier in 1890, as declared by the U.S. Census Bureau, marked the end of an era but not its impact. The relentless push westward created the modern American landscape, with its sprawling farms, bustling cities, and a unique national character defined by ambition and resilience. But this progress came at a profound and tragic cost. For Indigenous peoples, the frontier's closure was not a triumph, but a catastrophe. Their way of life was irrevocably shattered, their lands seized, and their cultures suppressed. The legacy of the frontier is a deeply complex one, woven from threads of both triumph and tragedy. The American frontier gave rise to enduring myths: the self-reliant cowboy, the rugged pioneer, the promise of a fresh start. These stories continue to shape our identity, a testament to the human spirit's desire for freedom and new beginnings. But they also serve as a reminder of the darker side of history, of the displacement and violence that fueled a nation's expansion. The frontier may no longer exist as a physical place, but its spirit and its ghosts still echo in the vast open spaces of the American West, a land forged by courage marked by conflict and forever changed by the passage of pioneers and the struggles of those who were here first. Now, like, share, and subscribe to journey with us into the forgotten corners of history.